chapter and National Parents Union. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all thriving. As normal on Thursdays, we have PE with Coach. Hey, Coach Robinson, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I'm so glad that you're here. And so before we start our planned activity discussion, physical education discussion, I wanted to just share some really helpful hints that I apply in my home with regards to meals and nutrition. And so I have these things that I use, these foods, and I just want to show you guys. Really simple, really easy snacks, healthy, that you could provide for your children and they can eat them throughout the day. And so right here I have, can you see that? I have cut up jicama with cucumber, and I put this out for my kids. If they want a snack, they can snack on that. Also, sharp cheddar sticks, which I try to give my kids sharp cheddar instead of like the more, the other ones, because really what it does is develop their palate around wanting less of good foods instead of more of bad foods. Also, we have these Baby Bell as snacks, and so they can have those throughout the day. The Greek yogurt, they have this coconut flavor, which allows us to put nuts or different kinds of protein, to add more protein to the Greek yogurt. That's through Chobani. And because I don't want my kids to drink their calories, drinking calories really adds up. It adds up with sugar. It adds up, in ways that you don't even understand. And you can eliminate drinking your calories by making flavored waters that the kids can develop an acquired taste around. And so in this, I have a water dispenser. I use fresh mint, cucumber, and strawberries. And you can see it tints the water a little bit, which is fine. But I keep that all the time and just, keep remaking it. As the kids are thirsty, they can have that. Also, just sparkling waters I offer as well. But it's so easy. You can get this mint. I bought it for $2.50. And it's growing right here in this bucket that I cut and made, right? This was vinegar, and we used it all. And so I cut the top off, and I put the mint in, and just a little water at the bottom. And so, like I said, those are just things that you could start integrating into your day, developing your kids' taste around more healthier snacks, and not drinking calories. And I will let the expert in this area in the conversation. Take it away, Tanae.
Well, I missed you last week, first of all. So good to have you back and, get right into this dialogue. And I'm so glad that you talked about healthy eating options for your students while they're at home, because a lot of kids are just binge eating because they're bored, So that's going to really lead us into our lesson focus today. Our lesson focus is how health is academic. So health is academic, and what does that mean in physical education? In addition to all physical benefits of physical activity, other benefits include increased concentration, improve attendance. If students were attending school right now, it would improve attendance and it would improve their behavior. So if you're noticing your students are a little bit more hyper than normal, check out what they're eating, because health is academic. Whatever you put into your body is what your body is going to put out in your behavior and in your attention span, and in physical ailments may start coming out because you're taking in too much sugar. And like we talked about last week with Tim, you don't want to, crash, get all the way to the top of the height of your emotion and just crash. And then you have very lethargic and lazy like characteristics throughout the day. And that can be a challenge, because we were talking off air about how now that it looks different, education looks different, and parents are frustrated we have a lot of frustrated parents teaching frustrated students. And
Mm-hmm.
what we eat can also attribute to how we're going to develop and how we are learning.
Even
And
our vitamin levels, right?
yeah,
How important is it to have your vitamin D and vitamin B at a normal level where you're not at a deficiency, right?
right,
Um,
right,
talk about that even, like, because, a lot of people would be outside, especially here in California,
right.
there's a lot of sunshine, right? And so when you don't have that, you need to be, watching your vitamin D levels
Right.
anyway, because you might not be able to get all of that from food.
So we talked about touched on that last week with Tim, and we talked about how nutrients are very important, and carbohydrates and proteins, and getting in that sun. If you notice, I'm in my house today. Last week I was outside, and we discussed getting at least some sunshine when it is nice outside. You want to get that vitamin D. We also mentioned that the more melanin you have in your body, the less likely you are to produce mass quantities of vitamin D. So being a woman of color, number one, women, when we get older, we have a vitamin D deficiency. In addition to being a woman of color, I may not produce as much vitamin D as my counterparts that are not darker skin or more melanin in their pigmentation. So it's very important that we talk about how our health is academic, because again, today would be day 42 in our PE log. And you can use that PE log also to track how well are your students able to adjust to the level intensity of the workload by what they eat.
Right.
So you can literally look at a graph and say, or look at your log and say, oh my goodness, I gave him a Pop-Tart, on Tuesday. And I noticed that I didn't get a lot of activity out of my student. And then again, physical activity also helps with concentration. So if you notice that your students are not doing well in the areas of concentration when they're working on their enrichment studies, or their I'm not sure which districts are requiring, because again, we're a national parent union. So some states are a little bit different than what we're doing here in Riverside County.
Right.
You know, it's a big part of who we are. And I think that a lot of times parents get away from watching what our kids eat. Right about 9 months, we start giving kids solid foods. I won't tell you when I got solid foods, 4 months. But,
Well, yeah, that's a cultural
that's
sometimes.
the cultural
They be
colloquialism,
like,
right?
girl, you better put some cereal in that baby bottle.
Yes,
Stop
yes,
playing.
yes.
That baby hungry. That's what grandma and them used to say.
Yeah. And so then if you notice, like you talked about maybe 2 weeks ago, you talked about how your calming kit,
Mm-hmm.
really great strategy that like I really take heed, to what you're saying and try to use them, because I'll be honest with you, I shared with Tim, I'm having a challenge with this
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling. So it's really cool that you talked about in your calming kit that you have chocolate. And then today you're giving a healthy alternative, because again, we want to create a different way of expressing how important it is to eat healthy with our kids. And what a great way to model the behavior, because health is academic.
Right. And so, I don't want to miss the opportunity to say to you parents and caretakers that are watching the family that Coach, as an educator, okay, just stated transparently that she's having a difficult and challenging time, right? And so be gracious with yourselves, step back, and we're in right now a time of creating new norms,
Right.
new just core values, but then different values. And I want to say this: people that have survived the 1930s Great Depression, they still remember that time today and can point back to the memories that they have about that time. people that survived the civil rights 1960s era, and remember all the things that happened at the culmination, at the height of that, like during 1964, you know, things that took place, have these landmark memories in their minds.
Right, right.
And so our children now are in a historic moment where this will be a landmark. 2020 will be a landmark time in their minds. What we establish for them is what that memory is going to pull off of. They're telling stories to their children and their grandchildren. And they can point back to good memories that we haven't given them. So they won't be like, man, I wish every day I was trying to run away from my parents in my house. Please, somebody. No, it doesn't have to be that way. We can establish a set of core values and utilize the experiences in the core value system that we already have to make that better, right? And so that they walk away with historic good memories and stories to tell. Thank you.
Right. Well, I'm glad you point that out, because, you know, as an educator, I think I hold myself so to a high standard, and I have two sets of kids, you know, and my first set, you know, all girls, you know, top 1/3, they're all successful by society norms. They're all successful,
right,
have advanced degrees. My youngest daughter, she's doing extremely well. And my second set are all boys, and they just are different. And I think that I hold this expectation so high that even his teachers, you know, I'm the parent that's going to call, email, have a Zoom meeting right now with the teacher on my own. And then we kind of go back and forth about, you know, what some strategies that she used in the classroom. Because again, as a physical educator, I look at education totally different than the classroom teacher, because I have other things in the classroom outside that teachers inside don't have. Right. So certain things don't bother me. Now that I'm inside, my kids being all over the place, not really raising their hand when we're in direct teaching, because I do direct teaching with my boys, just to those social skills, you know, together, because that's my fear, that my kids are going to be afraid. I mean, not, sorry, forget how to school. Oh, word, my word. And my student that has ADHD, you know, one of the character traits that you're going to see is that they like to blurt out and say whatever and just 7:30, you know, and, you know, now just my concerns are, how am I going to do that? So, you know, it's a challenge, but again, I really appreciate having this opportunity to share a wealth of knowledge that I do have with the parents, to say, you know, I'm an educator and been doing this a long time, and I'm struggling, and, you know, we're all trying to reinvent some things that, you know, we were taught differently, and trying to teach our learners to be globally competitive in a situation where we're at a deficit already, you know. And so when we talk about health, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The health is academic, is right on target. Because we're talking about, even if we look at the hierarchy of needs, the physiological needs are essential needs.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Every single other thing is going to be, the foundation of that is going to be those essential needs: health, safety, well-being, you know, just what you need as a person to thrive in those areas, right? And so I want to capture that. You said to keep those logs. How important is that? Because there might be some first-time watchers.
Right.
You know, keeping your child's daily planned physical activity and health journals is essential if you are able to also then map their mood.
Absolutely. And I'll piggyback on what you're saying, because not only there's a couple of reasons why it's important. Number one, as an educator in California, I have a certain amount of minutes that I'm required to instruct my students. So you want to make sure that you're trying to at least meet the standard, because again, a lot of our kiddos in California are not passing the physical fitness gram, and those tests are state mandated tests that will tell you some of those indicators that come up if students aren't meeting in that healthy fitness zone. So if
Right.
you're not really keeping up with how much activity, you don't really know how much to feed your child. And we touched upon this last week with Tim. We talked about, we were looking at people in the gym that has it all laid out and their meal prep and planning. I mean, there are a billion gyms out there making so much money on just the basic foundations of physical education by having these plans that as parents we can do at home with our own kids. So just by that log that we talked about in our second session, it's a log that you put the date on it, you tell what type of physical activity or movement that the child has done for the day, and you keep it throughout the day, and at the end you tally up how many minutes after 1 month, a month, 5 days, 6 days, you can tell how many minutes your child has been physically active. And then if your child is starting to gain weight, you can literally look at the log and say, okay, how much time for 2-3 weeks has my child been physically active opposed to how much weight they've gained. And so, I can also make that log available to our parents again, with National Parent Union, so that you can keep track. The second reason why it's important is because we don't know what direction the districts are going in. And I love to, one of my 3 Ps for my students is be proactive. And when you're proactive, you try to find strategies and ways that you can meet some of the challenges before they happen. It's like prepping for anything. I prep for everything. So being proactive, you keep a log of your bills, you keep a log of your bank
Right.
statements. So if you're keeping a log, you're able to recall or go and, turn it in if we're going to be required to have our students be accountable for this time off. Right now, there are some states that have just said we're just going to pass students, but what does the fine line say? As a mom, I always think of 2 and 3 different ways of doing things because I have a lot of kids, number one, and I can't meet every need with the same way. So I need to have structure. And, so that's the 2 reasons. The one reason is that you can track how much activity, and if you're seeing your child's lethargic or they're gaining weight, you can adjust the activity or the intensity or the type and the minutes per day to help control weight, either over or underweight. And then 2, you're also able to keep a log just in case you need to show record that your student did meet the state requirement for your state. The third thing is what we talked about with students with special needs, a while back, is students love routines. I don't care if they have an IEP, a 504, accommodations. All students love routines. And when you're working with different populations within special needs, that's the way that you can maintain even your own sanity as the educator, as the a provider of their education at home. Because I know the parents are overwhelmed. Christina, I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I realize that even, well-seasoned parents are a little bit overwhelmed. So parents, I want you to take a deep breath for one, step back, and understand the expectation. And so you talk about why children value routines, right? Well, because they know what to expect.
Absolutely.
It's not a surprise. It's not a shock, right? How well do people accept, good and bad surprises? It takes a little while to process and adjust to that. Transition, changes, sudden changes can affect anyone.
Right.
And so the routine is basically giving them an expectation. You have an expectation. You guys are sharing in the expectation, but
Right.
it needs to be reasonable, right? And
Right.
so, and it needs to be realistic. And so I like how you said with your older children, you know, you set like these really high like expectations, but you realize with your younger children, those have to look different because their modality of learning is different. My dad has 7 kids. And let me tell you what the 3 P's looked like with him. It was the 3 S's: school, the streets, or service. You pick one, right? And all of us picked school. You know, and so now I am basically with my kids understanding, you know, look, and this is my second decade of children. I have children ranging from age 8 to 26. 2 grandkids, 1 on the way. Shout out to little Josiah. I call him Josiah. He'll be here any day. But right. But those expectations are different for each child, and it comes from us parent experts. We know our children best. We know what helps them to thrive. We know what triggers them. And if you don't, right now it's time to assess that. The P logs, and also I'm able to provide examples of the P logs and mood charts even that you can, you know, chart daily health journals. You can either reach out to Coach Robinson at jrobinsonpeclass@gmail, or you can reach out to me, Christina at mpunion.org, and we will definitely be willing to help you navigate through all of this. We don't want you to be frustrated. We don't want you to be overwhelmed. We want you to be healthy. We want our children to be healthy so that they thrive. And so first things first, health, mental wellness, then academia. Okay.
And you know, I like the way that you we're segueing right into the how. How can we monitor health is academic? And one of the things that I do with my parents, what I'm doing now more so, is I'm sending home these home plays, and they're just a 1-sheeter that kind of goes over a concept, and then I give them an activity to do, and then I give them a physical activity to do, and they're able to log that as well, and they're able to keep that in a journal or a log or a binder. And the how would be family meal planning. So what does that look like? You just get a card, a piece of paper, a little spiral notebook, and you all plan meals together. What that will do is, just like we know our good friend Daniel can count calories, right? We talked about that in one of our other videos, that he can count calories. This is a great way to start teaching your children really about how health affects your well-being, and what you put in your mouth is how you're gonna function. So you plan a meal to cook and eat together with your family, and that could be pasta with sauce, broccoli, garlic bread, fruit salad, dessert for dessert. You write the recipe on a card and then make a meal together. So you can make other cards each time you plan a new meal, and in a month or so, your family will have many recipes for great family meals. What that will do is create memories. We talked about memories in the beginning, that this time at COVID, you know, was I overwhelmed? Did I have anxiety? And this can create moments. And I don't know about you, but I have a great grandmother family recipe that I'm just still trying to master. So that's also another way to be positive in this distance learning, you know, norm. So I really like the way that, you know, you talked about, you know, planning things out, writing things down. And this is another way to, you know, increase the comprehension on how health is academic, just by meal planning together and writing it out. And, you know, take it one day at a time. You know, parents just really know that we're out here struggling as well. And as an educator, we have to learn. Some of us have to learn on the fly. I've had the liberty not to. I've been pushed 10 years ago to learn this technology. So, you know, be patient, ask a lot of questions, email, you know.
So, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't say this, that the civil rights activist and humanitarian in me recognizes that there are people that are watching that are in food deserts. And I don't like gatekeepers over our kids' quality education, so I'm definitely very triggered by the fact that there are gatekeepers over quality food, okay? And what that looks like in different areas and how much is provided to people that are living in certain places. And, you know, we're really going to have to, as parents, help our friends across the nation, you know, because if any kids are not able to have access to quality foods and people look at this and say, wow, I wish I had access to jicama and cucumber, or I wish I had access to dark leafy green vegetables, or I wish I had access to meat that's not tainted or gray, or, you know, whatever that may be in your area, then we as parents are definitely going to have to collaborate, come together, and help push for those children and those parents in those areas to have access to quality, quality, because what you put in, like Coach said, is what it fuels your body, right? And so children should not be only having access to rotten, processed, yucky types of foods. And I had to say that. It's the humanitarian and civil rights activist in me, and I couldn't stop before I said that. So, Coach, can you go ahead and give the parents, and a lot of this was what we did during this time was repeating some of the things that we did before, but also, allowing for you to progress with new ideas, right? And so that's the way that we'll do PE with Coach on Thursday, so that anytime you join, you'll be able to pick up wherever we're at. If you want to go back and watch some of the other ones, that's fine, but you'll still be able to start wherever you're at now. So would you give the parents a final thought?
Final thought is, number one, continue to practice social distancing, and washing your hands should be a normal practice. Checking your kids' health every day, checking their temperatures, checking to see if their chests are tight or you hear wheezing. Make sure you take your families out to get some fresh air, and then start over. If it doesn't work, drop it, start over, because I would rather have your family be healthy and enjoying these times together than frustrated and bringing on new characteristics and behaviors that your students weren't having before. And, it's okay. It's okay. And my final thought is, if nobody loves you, Coach loves you. I tell my students every time I leave my kiddos, no matter if no one tells you that they love you, Coach loves you. And as an educator, as a parent, as an advocate, we are in this together, and I don't know everything. I come here by the grace of God. Amen. And allowing me to have a platform. And I really want to thank you, Christina, so much.
We have to have each other's backs. And that's how we are here at National Parents Union. We have each other's backs, and we are looking out for you, the parents, and the children's highest interest. And so you have been watching Managing Day to Day with me, Christina Laster, and National Parents Union. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all thriving. And we love you, parents, caretakers, and families. We love you, America's beautiful children. As always, you can watch Managing Day to Day, same place, same time tomorrow. See you later.